If you've ever said, I want old Santa Fe, chances are that you've been talking about the historic East Side, because this is one of the most iconic, layered, and really quietly complex neighborhoods in Santa Fe, and it's where everybody wants to live. Today I want to give you a big picture tour of the historic East Side and explain why it's actually made up of several smaller, equally charming micro communities. And yes, each of those deserves its own video. We're going to get there. We're just giving you an overview today. But what do people mean by the historic East Side? When people use that term, historic East Side, they're usually describing a broad area that's just east of the Santa Fe Plaza. But that term covers much more than one single neighborhood. This area includes the homes closest to downtown, around Canyon Road, up Palace Avenue or up Cerro Gordo, and it stretches down towards Acequia Madre and a few quieter streets that are further south. The cool thing about the historic East Side is that it's really close to everything. It's walkable to galleries and restaurants and museums, and yet it still manages to feel residential and private and really, really deeply rooted in Santa Fe history. One of the most important things to understand about the historic East Side is that it's not just one experience, it's many. There are plaza-adjacent homes. These are some of the properties closest to downtown Santa Fe. If proximity is your top priority, this area offers the best connection to restaurants and daily life around the plaza. Canyon Road is really world famous for its galleries. It's only a mile long, and has over 100 restaurants and galleries. And homes here range from historic adobes to some really beautifully designed contemporary properties tucked behind garden walls. Then there's Palace Avenue and Cerro Gordo. These areas feel slightly more residential and less tied into restaurants and shops. There's a little bit more elevation, you might get views, and this is where people find a really nice balance between quiet living and being centrally located. And then when you move into Acequia Madre, which is the major street that's just south of Canyon Road, you end up in areas where there are tree-lined streets. You're still on the historic East Side, but there's the Acequia Madre School. There's a little different rhythm. So one thing it's always important to know is that home values in the historic East Side can vary quite a bit depending on which pocket you're in, and sometimes even from one street to the next. There are large old family complexes and compounds in this area, and then there are tiny little condos. So that's where understanding these smaller areas really matter. And if you're ever curious about how these differences show up, whether you want to spend $3.5 million on a huge house or maybe $300,000 or $400,000 on a condo off of Garcia Street, give me a call. But the thing that ties the historic East Side together is its architecture and its atmosphere, because you're going to see centuries old adobe homes. I just sold a house that's 150 years old. And then you can see up on Cerro Gordo, there are some award-winning contemporary homes where creativity and innovation really coexist, where it's meaningful and not necessarily trendy. People who buy here tend to really value the history, the walkability, the sense of neighborhood, and the quiet. And they're people who want to be really deeply connected to the culture of the city.